Olá, bem-vindos a mais um ISE Talks, o webcast do ISE Business School. Hoje estamos aqui com o professor Riccardo Manzotti, que está de passagem aqui para o Brasil, e estamos com ele presencialmente nessa conversa. Riccardo Manzotti é um professor renomado italiano. Leio para vocês aqui o currículo dele: professor titular de Filosofia Teórica na Universidade de Milão, pesquisador visitante Fulbright no MIT, professor de Psicologia também na própria Universidade de Milão, doutorado em Robótica, mestrado em Administração de Empresas. No Politécnico de Milão ele fez a Engenharia Eletrônica. Riccardo, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Riccardo, let me ask you, what about your socks?
Thanks for the question, because I'm very
Different socks.
Yeah, I'm very fond of, let's say, my rainbow socks. I've always been very fond of them. I like them because they, as in the cover of the Pink Floyd, The Dark Side of the Moon, or in many other popular culture references, they are the symbol of understanding. They are the symbol of science. Because as of Newton, they are the best expression of the capacity of human understanding to break down a phenomenon, white light, into its component. So it is the unfolding. The word explanation, to explain, comes from the Latin to open, to unfold something into its parts. And so when we unfold light, when we explain light, what do we find? We find the color of the rainbow.
Okay.
And so I like to have at least one piece of my outfit that shows the rainbow.
And so to begin this interview, I would like to ask you, for you, what is the difference between the human intelligence and the artificial intelligence?
Okay, well, first let me say what they have in common. They have in common language, which is the capability to organize the knowledge about the world, bringing in causal structure that is expressed by words and by sentences what we know about the reality. But AI is missing three fundamental key elements, at least so far. I would say they are freedom, value, and consciousness. And I would like to say a few words about each of them, just to make it clear what I mean about them.
Okay.
First of all, I would like to start from value. Value is something that is not in the knowledge itself. It is what we want from the world. It is the goal of our existence. So, an example that I've done many times is provided by Google Maps. Whenever we ask Google Maps to give us a route, we may think that Google Maps is taking a choice, but the fact is that there is a hidden choice behind whatever we do with Google Maps. In fact, we could ask Google Maps to find, say, the cheapest route or the shortest route or the most ecological route. So, behind what any AI does for us, there is a question about what has value. Do we care about the environment? Do we care about our time? Do we care about our money? There are different choices, and that is value. So an AI today for an AI today, everything goes. Everything is just the same. And even if the AI knows everything or knows a lot about the world, it doesn't know what it would like the world to be. That is value. So this is something that today AI doesn't have.
And so it's also a human perspective. Talking about value is talking about human perspective.
Yes. Human perspective is all about value because we have a unique existence. We are not going to be around forever, each individual. We have to redeem our existence because we need to spend our time, our life, for something that is valuable. If we don't do that, our life is wasted. And since we have only one life, we cannot afford to waste our life. That is not true for AI, because we can rerun an AI as many times as we like. It is like the Hedgehog Day movie. Basically, the possibility to repeat everything as many times. So that is something that AI may do and that we may not do. So we need really to understand, to know better. We really need to know what has value for us. Because we need to spend our life in pursuit of what has value. So that is something that is very deep in our existential human perspective about life.
And so is value something that we discover from the experience? How do you think about it?
That's another very important point. Do we give meaning to the world, or do we discover the meaning of the world? Many people have this naive idea that according to science the world is meaningless and that human beings are arbitrarily giving subjective value to what we do. But this is not true, because we cannot really take everything. We cannot really, for example, if I didn't like a situation, a person, a job, I cannot like it just out of my will. I cannot choose what has value for me. By living, I discover what is important in my life. I discover what has value for myself. So, in this sense, I don't believe that value is something that is projected by the subjectivity of people, but it is something that people discover in the real world. Mm-hmm. And it is a real constituent of human life. And I would rather use another term, if I may, which is existence. I would prefer to use human existence, because often when we talk about life, there is a confusion between biological life, and which is a very important thing, but it is not our existence. Our existence is something different from just biological life, something more than biological life.
Okay, but you are talking about value, and after this you will talk about another...
About the other 2 points.
Yeah.
Value, freedom, and consciousness.
Please
the second point I want to talk about is freedom. Mm-hmm. And freedom has to do with our capability to take a choice, to choose something. Now, once again, we may think that freedom is just a process by means of which we compute what's best for us, what's better for us. But this is not true, because freedom is about choosing what we think is better for us, is about finding out what is what we are. If I may say, by acting in the world, by acting by a series of free choices, we are going to discover who we are. So freedom is a process of developing our identity. Freedom is extremely constitutive of our own existence, and is not simply a cognitive process. It is probably, in a way, a misconception that has been endorsed by cognitive science and also by computational model of the mind, the idea that freedom is simply a computational process that is not, in a way, totally determined by its antecedents. Many people have the idea that we are free simply when we are not constrained by external forces. But while it is true that we need to be free from external constraints, it is also true that that is not enough to be free. We are free when we are aware of our inner necessity, when we act accordingly to what we are. So freedom requires that we are aware of who or what we are, And therefore, when our actions are the outcome of our own identity. So there is a very tight relation between freedom, choice, and personal identity and our existence. I would say that if we are not free, we do not exist.
And so we manifest ourselves in the world choosing things.
Right. Freedom requires us to make a difference. If I acted every time just following rules, my existence would make no difference to the world. So I need to add something that is not included into a previous set of rules or previous causes. And this addition is the difference that shows that I am something. Because it makes sense. If it wouldn't make any difference that I am here, if everything would just happen according to previous rules, my existence or the lack of my existence wouldn't make any difference. And therefore, I wouldn't exist. So freedom is key to point to what we are. It is, I would say, the way in which our existence reveals itself. And of course, we are finally to get to the third point, which is consciousness. Consciousness is the very fact that the world is present to us. And it is the difference, it is one of the easiest difference in a way to see between us and machines. So, for example, if I take a phone, the phone is able to recognize me, and it is very reliable in doing that, to the point that I trust my phone not to unlock in front of other people if I just give it to my friends or whatever. But the phone doesn't see us like you do. At this very moment, you see my face. And if you pointed your phone to me, I wouldn't say that your phone is seeing my face as you do. So even if the cognitive skills of the phone and of you might be the same, in the sense that you both recognize me, that you are both reliable pattern recognition system able to recognize my face, still there's a difference. That there's a sense in which my face is present to you. That is not true in the case of the phone. This fact that the world is present to us is the case that is usually called consciousness. I'm not sure that consciousness is anything more than that. So, because as it is well known, today consciousness is a mystery for science. Although many billions are invested every year in the research on consciousness studies, mostly in neurosciences, no one has ever been able to find any direct trace of consciousness in the brain. In the brain, so far, there is just neural activity and electrochemical processes. And nobody has a clue as to how such electrochemical processes should become anything but physical processes.
So what is the place in which we find consciousness? There is a place?
Yes, is consciousness something that has a place? That is a big question. Is the I, is the self, something that is located in some space and time point? Well, actually, I believe it is, to the extent that everything that is real can be located, maybe in a fuzzy way, but it must be located at a certain point in time and space. Even in our religious tradition, if I can dare to make a reference, even saints and even the Son of God had to be located in history. That means that there is a strong sense in which everything that is real in the immanent domain has to be located in space and time. Mm-hmm. As I said, the boundaries of phenomena might be fuzzy, might be spread, and might encompass a very large portion of space and time, but they have to be somewhere in space and time. Okay. Now, the problem is that the place where a neuroscientist has been looking for consciousness so far has not proved to be successful. People have been looking for consciousness in the brain as of Vesalius in 16th century, and they've been looking with more modern technologies as of Helmholtz or Jonas Müller, and in the last 70 years they've been peering inside the brain with brain imaging techniques, with all kind of neural recordings, with fMRI and all kind of brain imaging technologies, but so far they haven't shown the presence of anything but neural activity. So probably neuroscience has been looking in the wrong place. There is a joke about that among neuroscientists, that there is a drunk man going back home and he lost his keys. So he's looking for his keys under a lamppost. And then a friend shows up, and the friend asks to the drunk man, "Why are you looking for your keys under the lamppost?" Because, you've been looking for your keys there for hours now. They're not there. Why do you keep looking for your keys under the spotlight of the lamppost? And the drunk man replies, "Because it's where I see better." And neuroscientists may be doing the same mistake, may be making the same mistake. Since the brain is the place they have the best tools to look for, they keep looking in that place, although they haven't found anything so far.
But and so, if not in the brain, where?
Now, I'm a physicalist, so I believe that if consciousness is real, it has to be something physical. Now, let's look at what we find in our everyday life. We may say that we find the experience of colors, of objects, of cars, of all kind of stuff. But do we really find the experience of all that stuff, or do we find that stuff itself? Do we really find the experience of colors, or do we find colors? Do I find the experience of the blue sky, or do I find the blue sky? And actually, it might be that the very idea, the very way in which we deal with consciousness today might be a pseudo-problem. According to the definition given by the philosopher of science Thomas Kuhn, when he said that a pseudo-problem is whenever we believe we know something we don't. And therefore we keep looking, like the drunken man we mentioned it before, in the wrong place. What might be the mistake, therefore, behind all the consciousness studies? It may be the assumption that if we are a physical entity, we are not the entities, the things that we find in our existence. Let me put it very clearly. For example, right now here there is a vase with flowers. And I might assume, like most neuroscientists, that I'm not those flowers, but that I am a brain who's having an experience of those flowers. Okay. The problem is then that nobody has ever been able to find an experience of those flowers. We know there's a brain and we know there are flowers, but where is the experience of those flowers? Neuroscientists thought it was a property of the brain. But brain doesn't have the property of those flowers. Mm-hmm. Is there a physical object right now with the properties that we find whenever we look at those flowers? Yes, there is. It is the flowers themselves. The flowers are the physical object that best matches with my experience of those flowers, to the point that I might get rid of the very idea of experience, and I may take into consideration a very radical hypothesis, that anytime I have something in my existence, I am that something. I'm not a brain that has an experience of those flowers. I am the flowers that are taking place thanks to my brain.
But and so in this way, can I ask you, for example, maybe I can say we have the knowledge of these plants, and also we discover a value in these plants. Could you please explain if my reasoning is correct?
Aristotle, one of the first philosophers ever, usually people quote either Aristotle or Plato. Aristotle, in this case, in the ancient Greece, said that, and it is still valid today, particularly in AI, that knowledge is the grasp of causes. So we have knowledge about those flowers when we understand how those flowers are going to act, are going to do things. We know how the cause and effect structure of those flowers. Now, rather than thinking that there is an abstract entity, namely knowledge, which is grasping those causal structure, I may rather say that because of the interaction with those flowers, my body right now is able to embody the causal structure of those flowers. To the point that, for example, I can grasp them, I can take them, I can do something with those flowers, I can rearrange them in a certain way. And so those flowers are able to do things because of my body. So it is a paradigm shift. Rather than putting the reference frame in the body and see everything else as a satellite of my body, what I am suggesting is to put the center of the causal reference frame of our existence in the object themselves, and to see the body as a way to expand the causal powers of those objects. I know that at the beginning it sounds strange, but it is very consistent with what is taking place. Because of our bodies, we may say that many things are able to do more than they could ever hope of doing if we were not here.
Okay.
So our bodies, in a way, are a tool to empower the world to be something more than what the world would be if we were not around.
Okay.
This empowerment is the meaning that we don't invent, but that we find and discover in the world. And the point is, what do we mean by discovering the value? I think, like another famous philosopher claimed, namely Spinoza, value and meaning have to do with power. So we discover meaning when we give value, the power to make a difference. So, for example, when I act in the world, I could act out of generosity. Let me make this example. I could make an act of liberal generosity with someone for no other reason. What was the cause of my action? The cause of my action was generosity. Acting in that way, my body brought into existence generosity as one of the causes of what is taking place. So when I act out of love, even out of negative values sometimes, out of hate, out of whatever, I bring those values in the real world because I give them power. And that brings us back to the notion of freedom. Freedom is whenever we act according to a value, and therefore we allow that value to be real by giving that power, by giving that value the power to make a difference. Things are very tightly knit together.
Let's change argument. I want to know a little bit more about your theory, the moi identity, moi theory.
Okay,
Please.
okay, thank you. Partially, I've already said something about that when I mentioned the fact that we may not be a brain peering at the world through the windows of our senses, but we might be the world that is impinging on our body. So in neuroscience, there was a previous position that was called the mind-brain identity hypothesis. The idea that all our emotions, sensations, and mental processes are nothing but our neural processes. That was the mind-brain identity hypothesis. This hypothesis, this theory, has never been proved, and actually most neuroscientists take that to be a failure because they haven't been able to show that the property of our experience are in a way instantiated inside our brain. They didn't find anything like us inside the brain. But I am suggesting an identity no longer with the brain, but with the external objects. According to this view, at any time, we are just one with the world, with everything that's the object as the thing, with everything that is present to us at that very moment. It is even possible, if we accept the moi, the mind-object identity, to get rid of the idea that something has to be present to us. It is enough to be present. In other words, it is enough to exist. That's why the moi is a kind of neo-existentialism. It suggests that we are real. We are not an inner, dimensionless, I would say, self. We're not an immaterial mind. Rather, we are at any moment, at any time, a portion of existence. We are a part of reality. And we are neither our body, neither are we our bodies, because our bodies are a condition for the world we are identical with to take place.
And so, can we say that we are the total amount of our experiences?
We are the total amount of our experiences. In this sense, it is a bundle theory of, a philosopher would say a bundle approach to consciousness, in the sense the bundle, the set of all our experiences. But I would be a little bit, I would resist to use the word experience, because whenever we say the experience, we always say the experience of something. We say the experience of a flower, the experience of a nice dinner, the experience of a long flight. But whenever we use the word experience, there is something else. My approach is to get rid of this intermediate entity, the experience of, and to go straight for the world, for what the experience is about. So rather than saying that we are the set of all our experiences, I would say we are the set of all the things that took place in our life. We are our history in a way. Mm-hmm. We do not need to put this placeholder of the world that we call experience. We are just one with the world.
Okay, let me put the things in this way. Well, you've said that a human being has freedom, and also values for the human being is a constitutive element, and also that the human being has consciousness.
Yes.
And so, can you really think that the artificial intelligence could think in this sense?
No.
Is really intelligence, artificial intelligence, is it really intelligence?
No, I would say that to the best of our knowledge at this moment, AIs do not have any of them, but they have just what we may call pure knowledge about everything. Let me give you an example. If I were congenitally blind, I wouldn't be able to have any colors in my life. But I may read everything has been written about colors, and therefore I may know how to use in an abstract way the word about colors. I may talk about, I may speak about the red of the lips, the green of the grass, the yellow of bananas, and so forth. Would that mean that I would know what is a color? No, I would only know how to use the words that standard human use when they refer to colors. But that would be totally different from what human beings do when they refer to colors, because human beings have colors in their existence. More traditional, one might say that the human beings experiences colors. I prefer to say a slightly more awkward expression, which is human beings have colors in their existence. But the point is the same. Human beings have real colors. AI right now has only abstract knowledge of colors. Namely, it has only a capability to use the words, the data that refer to colors. A nice metaphor about this point is that language may be seen as a fishnet that is used to take fish. Mm-hmm. But AI has just the fishnet without the fish. Human beings have the fish. We, as human beings, when we speak, when we use language, we are used to have both because we exist. We use language to move in a world. And while AI uses language only as a pure set of abstract knowledge about the world, but had never existed in the sense in which we have.
Okay, and so for you, it's a difference between knowledge and wisdom, the classical concept, wisdom. What do you think?
Yeah, no, well, I smile because it's something that it should be obvious, but unfortunately it isn't. Knowledge tells us everything, but it doesn't tell us how things should be. Wisdom is able to tell us about what the world should be, or why the world is what it is. Wisdom is trying to grasp something deeper about the structure of reality that is not trapped inside the fishnet I was talking before. And in this sense, it is somehow sad that today many people think that if we had infinite knowledge, we would have infinite wisdom. That is not true. I often ask to my student, if you and I had the same knowledge, let's suppose that we all had access to the same knowledge sources, so we had the same information, would we behave in the same way? And often my students reply yes, because they think that living is just applying rules, applying computation to information, to data. But that is not true. Even if we had exactly the same information sources, even if we had access exactly to the same information, you and I might still behave differently. And that difference would be what makes us unique and what makes important to be there together, but different. There's a joke among philosophers. If two philosophers have exactly the same views, one of them is useless. And that is true. If all human beings were just computational machines, there would be no point in having many different human beings. But each human being, as a human, carries their own unique set of values. And that's what makes them unique. So wisdom, freedom, choice is very different from knowledge, computation, and cognitive processes.
And also this affects the decision-making processes. Nowadays, we know that it is an understanding that to make good decisions is related to knowledge,
right,
and not related to wisdom.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem with human being is that if enough human being believes in something wrong, it becomes true to some extent. Today, for example, we think that it might be impossible to accept to be a slave. But for centuries, people accepted to be slaves of other human beings. Why? Because many human beings believed that slavery was a possibility. And because enough people believed that slavery was a possibility, slavery became actual, became a practical possibility. So we must be very careful today to accept, to believe into a reductive model of the human being, of humans. Because if enough of us will believe in, let's say, that we are machines, that will become true. If enough of us believe that freedom is a mistake, that will become true. And we will lose our rights, our values, our humanity. We must be very careful, therefore, to believe too easily in reductive models of humanities. There is so much that is unknown.
Talking about AI, do you think that AI could help us to be more humans, better humans, or kind of reshape our idea of humanity, or not?
On the one hand, yes. On another hand, I don't think so. Let me explain. In a way, AI is a mirror of certain capabilities we have. In that respect, it may help us to understand that we are more than AI. So, for example, in the past, many people believed that speaking was enough to be human. We believed that language was the hallmark of the human mind. And therefore, if something was able to speak like a human being, that's the classic Turing test. Then that something should be considered to be like a human being. That was a very common idea. But AI showed us that it is possible to speak without having a mind. It is possible to master language without thinking. It is possible to have knowledge without having value. So as long as we have a strong understanding of our humanity, AI will help us to understand how precious we are, because we are more than all of that. But on the other hand, it could work the other way. It could be so easy to reduce ourselves to a thinking machine, to a speaking machine, and to think that we are nothing but a speaking machine. For many decades we kept saying that we are just a software, like a computer running on the wetware of the brain. Now there's a more advanced machine and we are running to compare ourselves to that machine. And that's always a mistake.
Okay. Well, last topic. What about economy? The impact of AI in economy. Please say something about this.
That's the crux of the matter today. That's really the hard and probably the most urgent question we should ask, because AI may have a terrible impact on current economic system. And it will have a very strong impact because it will change the notion of value, of economic value in this case. So we all know that in the last, let's say, 70, 80 years, after we gave agriculture and labor, let's say manual labor, mostly to machines, the productivity shifted to some kind of cognitive capability that is now threatened by AI. So now we are going to face the fact that the value, the economic value of many things that are done by humans at this very moment is going to go to zero in a very short while. We don't see that happening because it's just 2 years since this technology have been deployed and unleashed in the real world, but 2 years is nothing. 2 years, it is like being in 1832 in Manchester and looking at the first railway and say, in 2 years nothing has changed. Mechanical transportation won't change the world, but we see what it happened. Now, I make the example with transportation because in Europe there were 400 million horses in 1910. Then in 1925 there were only 25, 30 million horses. Where did the missing 370 million horses go? And basically they ate them because nobody needed them any longer for transportation. It was a big change. Now it is key to understand whether the economic system, whether we live for the economic system as we knew it, or whether the economic system is made for humans. Mm-hmm. So I think that we will need to change the goals of the economic system.
Yes.
If we want to save the value of humanities. If we reduce ourselves just to means of production, then if that's all we are, if we really think that we live for the economy and not the other way around, then we're going to go through really difficult, hard times. Mm-hmm. But that will be a political choice. It's not a mandatory outcome of events. The future is in our hands. And our hands depends on what we want the future to be. We're still free.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Agora convido vocês, para acompanhar os próximos ISE Talks que fizermos aqui. Tivemos a presença do professor Manzotti, compartilhando muitos conhecimentos e também reflexões interessantes para você e para mim. Até o próximo ISE Talk.